Dan,
Yes, Craig.
we are live. We've got quite a few listeners ready to go. They're willing to hear what you have to say about international MMA promotions. We have a ton of cards coming up this weekend. You've got a lot going on with MMA Buds and the YouTube content, and we'll get into that in a second. Before we get too far, reminder that the call is brought to you by Dialog. Head on over to the website, getdialog.am. As was noticed, make sure you use the Chrome browser. It tends to work a lot better on Chrome. Sign in with your Twitter, and you can click to start a dialogue. And Indigo Moose asked, is this on YouTube as well? I'll explain the platform just before we get too far into it. So it's on Dialog. It's similar to talk radio where I have the power. I can bring you on air. We can have a conversation. You can head into the comments as well. Obviously, Dan's comments down there had some issues with Firefox. And like I said, Chrome seems to work best. You can talk about whatever topics you want on here. For me, it's MMA. Host shows on here every day, so you can catch those here on Dialogue. Dan, what were you going to say? What have you got going on right now?
Man, well, as far as over at MMA Buds, we messed up and accidentally streamed some embedded. So they have taken away my live streaming. So as far as hanging out with me for a live reaction during, say, ACB like we did 90, that's no longer available for now. So I'll just be bringing mainly previews and recaps to people with all sorts of news throughout the week.
Oh, my.
Yeah, for the time being, that's what we got to work with.
That sucks and kind of zaps a bit of the buzz. Yeah, you were pretty busy with those, eh?
Definitely. The main thing though is I find not a lot of people have time all day long to sit there and watch fights and hang out with us. So my big thing now is I'm going to start to try making just short little recaps for everybody, and that way if they can't sit down and enjoy the whole card, they only got time for UFC and Bellator, well then they could just watch my highlights and hopefully get all the enjoyment out of the cards that I'm getting. I'm trying to at least bring everyone the enjoyment.
So I just hopped on YouTube before we started speaking and came on air, and I had a notification, obviously, subscribe to MMA Buds. Did you just post a video that was maybe an older one?
I don't believe so. Maybe some crazy shit's going down though.
Yeah, something's going down on YouTube because I got a notification from one of your videos that came out like over a week ago. I don't know why it just popped up on my YouTube, but yeah. So make sure you check out the MMA Buds content. Like you said, might not be doing some of the live reactions anytime soon, but you've got other stuff going on. Last time we had chatted and we had kind of collaborated. It was a couple months ago. We had some technical issues here on Dialogue. We hopped on over to your YouTube channel. We did a live reaction for Cage Warriors 96. So, I mean, they've been doing well. You're going to move, to some different stuff. But kind of give us the rundown. I mean, how did you end up on YouTube? How did you end up doing this stuff, as often as you have?
Man, well, I think like most MMA fans out there, my fandom just is greatly increased as of lately. I'm not only just interested in UFC and Bellator. Maybe it's because I got more time in my schedule, but I love all of MMA, and it's people out there like Kaposa, Grabaka Hitman, Joe Lasanda, Maldo Balbo. I'm on Twitter, I got a big presence there, and I see all these people watching all these fights, and I just decided, why don't I start watching these? And people probably, if they're familiar with me, they'll know that I've been calling into the MMA shows for about 3 years now. Started on Sherdog, found MMA Junkie Radio, found Sirius XM from there, and then just all sorts of awesome shows on YouTube. And then kind of how I got into YouTube, your real question, I would say I was watching somebody who had a small MMA show, and they just kind of happened to blurt out how they're doing it. How are they doing this? And, the ability for anybody to get on YouTube these days is up there with, and he mentioned OBS, Open Broadcasting System. And from there, I just ran with it. I opened it up, started playing around, and just started, I think, some of my first things I was doing was I was watching the Fight Pass prelims with everybody, kind of a Fight Pass and chill. So we were watching Invicta, the prelims, Cage Warriors, all that good stuff. So basically, if you're what I call an MMA junkie, you can't get enough of this content, then you're like me. And in my life, I don't know how other people are, but not a lot of people around me just love talking MMA all the time. And so I found this community online where there's people out there that want to do that. And so basically through YouTube, I could just form my own community and have all my friends come in. And essentially, I see it as, we're sitting there just kicking back, relaxing, watching the fights together. And that's what I love, having people to watch fights with.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a lot of fun. Obviously, I sent a couple of messages there last weekend when you guys were doing the ACB 90 live reaction. Had a lot of issues with the broadcast, hopping from YouTube to Facebook to, their official website. There's some news going on with ACB about a possible merger. Do you see that happening anytime soon?
I definitely do. And man, I kind of want to give people some chronological order of how I found ACB. And so I'm listening to MMA Junkie Radio. I think it was before UFC 216. And this is kind of post Mayweather McGregor. And if a lot of people remember that, you're talking about difficulties with streams with ACB.
Yeah.
Well, I purchased that card through UFC Fight Pass. And that was the first time they went big. They're and that pay-per-view was so big that the stream got shut down. It was just overloaded with people. And from there, I guess they decided they wanted to bring in another partner to distribute out the content online. And so they partnered up with FITE.TV, and those guys went on MMA Junkie, gave out a free stream. I just so happened to get that stream, and so with that free pay-per-view, that kind of opened up the doors to fight, and that's where I found ACB getting broadcasted live and for free, and so many other great shows. And what man, and that's just kind of leads us to ACB. ACB, in my opinion, was the greatest promotion that was growing at the time. They were the new guys on the block, quickly rising up, putting on more shows than M1 Global, putting on more shows than Fight Nights Global, and even won championship. They were about to pass Bellator, in my opinion. Something happened though, man. I don't know what went down. Apparently their financials, they couldn't pump as much money into it as they were. Maybe they went international a little bit too hard too quick, because they were headed to Australia, they went to Brazil, they went everywhere. And being kind of a Russian, more European based promotion, I think that put them into some financial troubles. I don't really know the backstory of any of this though, but moving forward, we had those 3 HCB shows that got canceled. It looked like it might be the end of the road for them. They salvaged together some cards, and they put together some pretty stacked banging cards recently. But I guess, the writing was on the wall once we saw the promotions. The promotion had to canceling cards, and word on the street is they are going to merge with World Fighting Championship Akhmet. And it kind of makes sense given that they're kind of from the same region.
Yeah, it seems to make a lot of sense, and it's a damn shame because when I started getting into ACB, it was earlier on this spring before I kind of went and did my own thing with Fight Night Picks. So that was back in April. And I remember 86, 87, they were really starting to grow. Obviously, they added in Jeff Houston as their in-ring announcer. They've got Frank Mir on commentary. They bring Herb Dean in, and he does fan events. So ACB 90 this past weekend. And if there's anybody listening in, you want to head into the comments, you've got questions for us, you want to talk with us, go right ahead. Best part of the show right there. Dan, what did you think of old Herb on Saturday at ACB 90?
Man, I hate to say this because he's honestly, throughout the years, we've recognized Herb as one of the best referees.
Yeah.
And as of late, I can't say that. I've seen just, fight after fight after fight that's just going wrong for Herb, whether it's way too many fights that are going way too late, or this last one at ACB 90 where he thought that Georgia Kirkanian, or whatever his name is, he thought that he got the choke, stopped the fight, and I mean, Herb Dean has been involved with basically the last two almost riots at events.
Yeah.
He he messed up the Conor Habib thing, kind of didn't keep Habib in the cage. I'm not saying that he could have stopped him, but maybe that's the referee's job to keep him in the cage. That nonsense goes down, and then over at ACB 90, a literal riot got started. The riot police had to come in, stop this. There's video evidence of brawl after brawl, and all because he went in there and called the choke off too soon, man. And I just hate to see that.
Yeah, that was kind of wonky, and it sucked. I think for you guys kept the stream, didn't you? You guys could watch the whole thing.
Yeah, well, let's go back to ACB 89. ACB goes dark for a couple of months, and then they come back, and word on the street is they're going to enter pay-per-view. And then it wasn't too long after that we found out the pay-per-view price is only $3. And given the fight passes out there that cost 10. You go on Fight TV and you could pay $30 for a Risen card, $12 for a KSW card, and with the quality that you're getting from ACB, $3 was a no-brainer for me. Obviously, exactly. I'll give you the $3. To me, though, I like to support these small promotions. I want the sport to keep getting healthier and wealthier. So I give them my $3. Of course, the stream has all sorts of difficulties. I'm watching it, and compared to YouTube, given I have a reaction stream, it's kind of a big deal that I have a stream that's, not a minute delayed or something like that, which is what you get when you order a fight off of Fight Pass. That's my only complaint about Fight Pass, is you're behind the regular broadcast. Well, the same thing with ACB, and then buffering issues going on there. So I wanted to pay the $3. I really wanted the English commentary, but the same thing kind of went down with Fight Pass. They didn't have the servers to handle all the people trying to come and buy it. And so basically you had to resort to going to the free stream on YouTube and watching the Russian commentary, which, I mean, it doesn't suck for me because I'm not even listening to the commentary. We're doing our own thing. But for people that are paying for the event, it is a big bummer. I guess, they kind of saw what happened with 89 though, so they were kind of ready with 90. They shut down the YouTube stream, but eventually had to bring it back up when they had all their pay-per-view issues.
Yeah, and so for me, it came back on at the very end of that Karakhanyan fight, just as Herb was stepping in, and then Karakhanyan got punched in the face. And then at the end of the fight, it looked like, let's get some clarity. So that was on the English broadcast. We'll send him in. We'll talk to Karakhanyan. We'll see what happens. They send him in, and we didn't get to hear anything. Those fighters were out of the cage quickly. And I know what's the slogan? I tweeted it out the other day. More fighting, less show, I think is exactly what it is.
Less show, more fights.
Less show, more fights. So
yeah.
That kind of seemed like, okay, I understand how ACB works. They like to get people out of there quickly, and then the next fighters come in, which is something I know you'd enjoy. I enjoy it. It keeps it going. Their pace of play, if you will, for a North American fan is pretty good compared to what, the UFC did. Like, I know the card in Denver, the first hour, there were only 2 fights that I was paying attention to anyway. So the pace of play is usually pretty bad there, but with some of these other promotions, it's pretty good. But obviously, they got those guys out of the cage as quickly as possible because, like you said, on Twitter, there were a lot of videos of some riots, different things going on in the crowd. So definitely not good things to see. And to bring it back to Herb Dean, I mean, you look at that main event between Vakayev and Bilisteny. I mean, Vakayev held that choke for way too long, and Herb had to end it and also push him off of Bilisteny. And at the same time, I thought it was kind of dirty the way that he got that choke in because Herb Dean kind of got in close to them, and it looked like he was trying to say, hey, stop grabbing the cage, or hey, stop hammer fisting to the back of the head, which is what I was kind of watching and paying attention to. Bilisteny brought his head up to look at Herb Dean, and at the same time, Vakayev got the neck for the choke.
Yeah, that's terrible. Did he place his hand on his back too, or was that a different fight that I saw people talking about?
It could have been a different fight. I know in that fight, in that main event, he was kind of hammer fisting to the back of the head to the neck area. And that's what I figured, was happening. I thought Herb Dean was going to step in and say something, because I've talked to other referees before, namely Kevin McDonald, who was on one of my shows, and he had said, you can do it once and the referee will say something. Maybe the second time it's an accident, but if you continue to do it, there will be a point deduction. So it was just interesting to see what happened there. Obviously, Vakayev retains his title, goes on the mic for a long rant. They don't translate that into English, and that was the card. So lots of international MMA last weekend. This weekend, I mean, you've got Brave CF18, the Brave International Fight Week. Obviously, Jose Shorty Torres over there. Has there been any confirmation that he signed a contract with them?
Not that I can recall. I know that Shorty Torres was signed to do commentary for the World Amateur Championships that are going on this week at the Brave International Combat Week. And so he's definitely there for commentary all throughout the amateurs. And he said throughout all the interviews that I've seen with Shorty, basically he's got, so many promotions that he's looking at, and the ones on the wall for him, one championship, who's got a flyweight division. He mentioned KSW by name and Brave as well. So it sounds like those are the ones that are showing interest in Shorty. And I think Shorty, he's kind of an odd case, because you look at his UFC record, he's 1-1. He had that fluke win, and the UFC says, you basically almost 0-2 in our mind, and that's why we're letting you go. I think the story goes well beyond that. Back at Titan FC, apparently, when Shorty was trying to get in the UFC, he had mentioned how him and Mick Maynard are not exactly the bestest of friends, and so maybe that's got to do with this issue. But with Shorty Jose Torres, what was it? Just this last weekend, Korean Zombie knocks out Yadir Rodriguez in the last second. What happens? That shit goes viral. That shit was all over ESPN. It was on Sports Center as well. There's only one other fight I can remember from the UFC that got mentioned on Sports Center, and that was Jose Shorty Torres when he threw that crazy dumping takedown and ended up winning that way. Him getting that and getting on Sports Center, that boosts his brand so much. So much. I don't think people really realize how big that is, man. We've been on Fox Sports. I'm a Pac-12 fan. Fox Sports is great. They are minuscule compared to ESPN. So when Shorty Torres gets that highlight on there, I think his brand is way up. His value's way up there. And so when you compare him to other flyweights that maybe don't have as big of a name as Joe Benavidez or something, I think he's got a big future out there. I'm definitely looking forward to watching Shorty wherever he goes.
And you had mentioned, I mean, if he's doing broadcasting this week, he does so many interviews on so many different channels all the time. You see him, and he speaks really well. So yeah, I think he's definitely got a bright future. Obviously had, a great career before the UFC. Maybe the UFC didn't go, kind of the way that he had planned it. Obviously 1-1 with that crazy kind of fluky win over Brooks. And I see today, actually, that James Lynch tweeted that the UFC signed back Louis Smolka. And I asked him, is he going to be fighting flyweight or bantamweight? And apparently it's a bantamweight contract. So good to see, one of those West Coast guys. I always enjoyed watching Louis Smolka fighting in the UFC, and a good signing, I think, on their part. So heading into this week, like we said, Brave CF 18, M1 Challenge 99, Battle of Narts. There's all sorts of different, one championship, Warrior's Dream. I mean, what are you looking forward to this week? What are some of the cards that you're going to be watching?
Well, ever since M1 Global signed their deal with UFC, that we could basically think of them as UFC Russia almost. Yep. And so I'm definitely looking forward to that. Anytime they go out to these exotic locations is pretty cool. I know they got like Battle in the Mountains over at M1 Global, which is literally like a natural amphitheater out in the middle of nowhere. They drive people to the octagon as their walkout. So they're always doing cool shit. And as far as M1, these guys that are in these main events, if you get a title at M1 Global, you have a direct link getting into the UFC. So I mean, it's hard to miss something like that. And I'm always sold on cards during the day. So whether it's Friday or Saturday morning, if I get to watch some MMA before I watch MMA later on that night, I love that shit. So I'll definitely be tuned into M1.
Yeah, for sure. So am I. I mean, you got Sealander and Alexander Daskalchuk for the flyweight belt there. Obviously, not sure what's going on in the UFC, but not looking good there. And then, of course, you've got Anton Viazigin fighting in the co-main, and he's kind of an interesting cat. Obviously, his last fight against Sergey Haratonov, they called it a no contest, then they called it a win or what have you. It was a weird ending where Viazigin kind of extended his hand. Haratonov pretty much sold the eye poke. And that was all she wrote in that fight. So we get to see Viazigin back. He could be an interesting guy, possibly fighting in the UFC in the future. Obviously, like I said, you got one championship, LFA 54, Cage Warriors 99, UFC on Saturday, Bellator, which I believe it was more or less confirmed online that one's on tape delay on DAZN as well.
Yeah, which is really unfortunate. I mean, we've been dealing this with Bellator for a while, and we don't even have to complain half as badly as those people over in Europe do.
Exactly.
But being on tape delay, I'm on the West Coast, and so I can't even watch that stuff live. I got it on tape delay over here. That was back when I had cable. So ever since I've canceled cable, I knew DAZN was in my future, and that was only when they had Bellator. I was like, I'm a cord cutter. This is going to be great for me. And so what I'm hoping is, obviously this DAZN deal kind of came out of the middle of nowhere. They've already got distribution deals signed. They've already got contracts with these, channels and networks out there. So hopefully this tape delay stuff's going to be ending very soon. I just have no idea when that's going to be.
Dan, great kind of segue there. So, do you have the Bellator Do you have the DAZN subscription right now?
Yes, I believe I got it. Bellator 205, the very first available card, and I think that was the morning of or the day before Joshua versus Pumpkin. So I've had it ever since then.
So I have it. Obviously, up here it's a little bit differently, but things in Canada seem to be going a little bit differently all the time. So obviously, we've got NFL, we've got college sports, which I didn't even know of until, fairly recently. There's some football, some basketball there, some stuff that I know you'd be interested in. There's KHL hockey, which I actually really love. And like you said, if there's anything during the day, I've got a weird schedule. We're on here right now talking. So for me, I get to watch some of the Russian hockey, which I really enjoy. And then for boxing, we've got Matchroom. For MMA, we have Bellator and Combat Americas, and that's it. I've searched long and hard online, and it's really hard to get some of the answers. But I know in the States, for MMA, you have Bellator, Combat Americas, KSW, EFC. What else do you have down there? I know there's a few more promotions that you have access to.
You pretty much mentioned all of them but one. Road FC, the South Korean promotion. I think that was the only other one that you missed. Yeah, man. Which is crazy because over the past year, I've been paying Fight TV a lot of money to watch these cards. I was buying KSW beforehand, and essentially paying $10 a month for DAZN is saving me a ton of money. And almost every promotion that I've kind of expanded into, it seems DAZN is picking up. The only one they really don't got, ACB and Risen. If they had those, they're pretty much gonna, I don't know. I'm not gonna say that they're gonna kill Fight Pass, but they might, man. It's different for you. You're in Canada. We're gonna be moving to ESPN Plus here soon. But if I had a limited amount of money, I could only afford a couple of things. Moving on next year, come January, I would sign up for ESPN Plus and I would sign up for DAZN, and that's basically all the MMA I need. And then come end of year, I could buy Ryzen and be good.
Yeah, I mean, we're obviously not paid to say that, but I totally agree with you. I'm really looking forward to DAZN in Canada possibly picking up some more. I know Fight Network has some of the promotions, and for some of the other ones, obviously, like you had mentioned, KSW, like I can go into KSW TV and get their pay-per-views. And obviously, KSW 45, I had a chance, I got off a plane, and as soon as I got off the plane, I hopped on my computer and watched that. And it was the first time that, it was a family vacation. So obviously I had to be around the computer, and, my family, they're kind of used to watching ACB to an extent, so they get with the Russian commentary. Obviously, UFC and Bellator as well, making a big deal of it. And they couldn't believe KSW, the production value that goes into it, and the entertainment value as well.
Oh my gosh. If people are not familiar with KSW, I highly encourage you to go check that stuff out. In fact, I would say go watch KSW 42. Go watch the super fight between the middleweight champion and the light heavyweight champion. One of their best fights I've seen. Mamed Khalidov puts on a show, and this guy, if people don't know, he's like the Chuck Liddell over there. The UFC literally cannot pay him enough money for him to leave Poland. And man, so KSW 42, go watch that. That kind of transitioned into, that was such a banger fight, back and forth. I thought Muhammad was gonna pull it off, and then he gets shaked off, taken down, and what's his name ended up winning that one. But we're gonna have the rematch.
Yeah.
And I was like, what are they doing? Khalidov is their big guy. What if he loses again? But I think they're doing this 100% right. Khalidov was the middleweight champ. He vacated the title. Now they're doing a 4-man tournament down there, and the quarter semifinals have already happened, so we're getting ready for the final match of that. And now Khalidov is saying, you know what, I lost, I want that shit back. And that's the mentality I want out of a fighter. And so that's just KSW 42, but I want to remind people that one of the biggest cards to go on in MMA in the past pretty much 18 months was KSW 39, the Coliseum show. And they stuffed, 58,000 people into a stadium to go watch all of their greatest stars go at it. And man, we haven't seen a audience like that since down in Australia when Ronda Rousey was fighting, or even further back, you got to go to GSP in Canada, or freaking Pride doing what they were doing in Japan so long ago. So when they think of KSW, I'll bring this up. A question that Luke Thomas asked, I forget the gentleman's name.
Martin Lewandowski?
Yeah, one of the owners over there of KSW, who asked him, and I don't think he was trying to, throw shade at him or nothing, but he said, you say you guys are, KSW's the biggest thing over there in Poland. Do you have any proof of that? And he was like, yeah, man, like you guys say I train UFC over here because it's kind of the Kleenex of MMA. Well, we say we train KSW over there, and the proof's in the ratings. There is not 300 million people that live in Poland. I don't know the figure. I could look it up if we have a second. But they have over 1 million people watching their cards on television. It is, from what I'm told, it's the second biggest sport besides soccer, which sounds a lot like Brazil, And so that is a hotbed of a market. KSW, their promotion is excellent. They're a lot into the pageantry. They're into kind of the freak show fights that people, if you love Pride, you'll come to love. Go watch some strongmen throw down in like a 3-minute contest besides before they get, completely gassed. But I love that shit. I love the sport of MMA, but I also love the pageantry too. I'm not kind of a purist in one sense or the other.
Yeah, I mean, you had mentioned it. So Khalidov, you've got Narkun. They're redoing that fight at KSW 46. That's coming up in December, so look out for that one. I had International Director of Communications Alan Murphy on my show, and we talked about a slew of different topics. But obviously, he's super pumped to be involved with KSW. Obviously, they're really looking forward to the signing that they made with Martin Ford. I mean, you saw the pictures. I saw the pictures, tweeted it out as soon as it happened during the broadcast of 45. That guy's huge. He's what, 6'8", 6'9", 320 pounds? And he's already looking to kind of slim down a little bit so he can, get a fight, I guess. I mean, I really wouldn't want to fight a big guy like that. Obviously, at 5'11" and about $165, that wouldn't happen. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to him making his debut. You had mentioned it, some of those kind of freak show fights, but more entertaining fights. I mean, you had Popek Monster, Polish rapper. He was on Dancing with the Stars, finished pretty high up there in Poland. He fought a Belgian bodybuilder, Erko Yoon. That was a fun fight. But like you said, I mean, once the second round happened, both guys were a little bit gassed there. But yeah, they seem to have a lot of fun over there in KSW. And you want to talk about how big of a draw they are. And that was the biggest takeaway I got from Alan the last time he and I had talked. So you watch KSW 45 and you hear the crowd. It was an English crowd. They had it at Wembley Stadium, totally full. And I thought, this crowd doesn't seem like an English crowd, just kind of the way they're reacting and whatnot. No, those Polish fans travel, and they travel in droves. And he said it must have been like a 70% Polish crowd to a 30% English crowd, which I thought was insane.
Wow. That's great news for them. I think that's only the second time that they've went over to the UK.
Yeah, for sure. And
or maybe third, because I think they went to Ireland once too.
Yeah, they did have one more card. I think you had said 32. It might have been somewhere around there when they had a Wembley card. And then this 45, it was returned to Wembley. So they put on great shows. Like you said, I mean, I would urge, fight fans to check it out. If you're here in Canada, KSW TV, if you're down in the States, get that DAZN subscription because KSW is included there. Dan, I really want to thank you so much for coming on. We've got a lot of great fights coming up this week that we had mentioned already. Where can people find you online, the fans that are out there, and where can they find your work?
You can find me online on Twitter at Dan from OR. That's the abbreviation for Oregon. You can follow MMA Buds on Twitter as well, just at MMA Buds with a Z, and also over on Instagram as well. And if you guys want to hear me all throughout the week, I'm usually calling into MMA Junkie Radio pretty often. The Luke Thomas Show, and one of my favorites, MMA Tonight with RJ and AJ. And that's the channel that Misha Tate, I believe, is leaving to go have her job over at One Championships, if you guys aren't familiar.
Apparently they're bringing in, 25 million viewers for every card, which I was really surprised to see, and that caused a little bit of controversy on Twitter. But Dan, really want to thank you for coming on. Reminder to everybody out there listening that the call is brought to you by Dialog. Head on over to getdialog.am, sign in with your Twitter, click to start a dialogue. You can talk about whatever topics interest you. For myself, it's MMA. For Dan, make sure you check out MMA Buds on YouTube, on Twitter. You can find him, Dan from OR, on Twitter. Dan, thanks so much again for joining me, and we'll be back with another episode of MMA in the Afternoon shortly.